love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Those words are from the Talmud. The Talmud is the collection of the central teachings of Judaism. It was an oral tradition before Christ's era, and about 60, 70 years after that, they started writing them down. But it's an essential part of the education of every Jewish male. Jesus would have been very, very familiar with these words because he would have been a student of the Talmud since he was about that high. I hear those words of the Talmud echoed in the gospel for us today. Jesus would have been rephrasing them to us, teaching us and saying, A, love God, and because of that, love your neighbor. This week is very special in my life. 25 years ago, I was ordained a deacon at St. John's Cathedral in Denver, Colorado. The bishop's hands laid very heavy on my head that day as I heard him say, "Therefore, Father, through Jesus Christ, your Son, give your Holy Spirit to Diane. Fill her with grace and power and make her a deacon in your church." The cross I'm wearing today was a gift from friends, those who walked with me in that journey to become a deacon. Now, most deacons are ordained to a particular church, a particular congregation, like Lonnie and I are here. But that was not my experience when I was ordained. I was ordained to work for a region. Doesn't that just sound exciting? And what a region was, for lack of a better term, a clump of churches. And this clump of churches was everything south of everything south of Denver itself in the metro region. And there were 13 congregations. And my job was to go from church to church, a different church every Sunday, and help those people understand by what I did at the altar, by how I preached, by what I said, by how I encouraged that congregation, what it is to be active people in their community. I also helped them by looking at their outreach ministries in each one of the churches and encouraging what they could be doing in their community that might be new or different, or enhancing what they were already doing. And as I traveled, I only got stopped once by the police. I just want to be honest about that. I was stopped and I had my collar on and he said, "Don't do it again." So I didn't. But my prayer became, "Lord, lead me in your way." And I should have said, "Comma, slowly." At one of those churches, in fact, it was a church I was on my way to when I got stopped, I met Ben. And Ben told me about a medical mission that he was involved with at an orphanage in Mexico. And he told me about his daughter, Emily. Well, when Emily heard that her dad was flying down to Mexico 2 or 3 times a year and helping orphans, she got all excited about it and she wanted to do something about it. So she got herself a little can and she decorated it up. And she walked door to door in her neighborhood saying, "My daddy's working with orphans in Mexico and I want you to give me money so I can help him." And she was about this high and cute as a button. And of course they gave her money for her to give to her daddy, take to the orphans in Mexico. A few weeks after that, Emily was riding her horse, was thrown and was killed. So Ben asked me to continue Emily's ministry. So I said, yes. How could one say no? And I said, "So Ben, what do they need?" And he said, "They need shoes." None of the kids has ever had a new pair of shoes. They just rotated the shoes as they got older. They just kept moving the sizes up. None of the kids had ever had a new pair. So in my travels to the different congregations, I took Emily's can, told them about Emily, told them about her desire and her ministry, and I gathered money. And I gathered money until I had enough money for a new pair of shoes for all 95 of those orphans. And Ben said, "Well, you have to take it down to Sister Ollie." She was the head of the orphanage. "You have to come down with us." And I'm going, "Whoa." Okay, so we flew to Mexico, one of the Cessnas going down there. The rest of them were filled with medical guys and gals who were going to be working in the clinic. And I had the joy of shopping for 95 pairs of shoes, and the joy of seeing those children in the gymnasium wearing their new shoes, dancing around and laughing and playing and singing. It was awesome. On the trip home, we encountered what I would call front range rough weather. And those of you who've been in Colorado know what I mean by front range rough weather. And I used up all the air sick bags in my plane. And when we changed planes, I got them all out of the other plane, and I used those too. I vowed I would never set foot in another Cessna in my life. And again I prayed, Lord, lead me in your way. And what I heard again was, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Well, about 2-3 weeks later, they were doing ministries fair. You know, we've done that here where all of the ministries in the church put up the, display showing what they were doing. And they asked me to put up something about the work I was doing down in Mexico. And I had my display up and showing the kids laughing and carrying on and their new shoes. And next to me was another display from the Colorado Haiti Project. My project showed children with new shoes. The Haiti Project showed children with no shoes. Susan, a good friend who was one of the medical providers for the Colorado Haiti Project, had heard me preach before, and she said, Diane, we need you. We need you to help us with the Colorado Haiti Project. And I said, how do you get there? That was the key question. How do you get there? And she said, Airbus. That's going to work. An Airbus is a really big airplane. So I said, yes. And then I said, what do you need before we go? And she said, we gather over-the-counter drugs. So a new round of preaching. I'm preaching about Haiti. And I asked people for donations of over-the-counter drugs. Just like our noisy can, only bring us your aspirin, your ibuprofen, your Prilosec, not Prilosec, because they were all over-the-counter things. But bring the drugs that you can do and make sure they're in date, or the officials in Haiti wouldn't let them come through customs. So we could take them down there and hand out at our mission. So, new preaching, telling people about the medical needs down there in this part of Western Haiti and how they could help by donating those drugs. That first trip to Haiti changed me forever. I saw the wrenching poverty of not a third world country, but a fourth world country. I saw the huge sacrifices the parents did just so their kids could go to school, because going to school was the first step to success in their lives. The parents had not had a school to go to, and the Episcopal Church had provided a mission school there that these kids were going to. They had to pay a little to come, but they did have to pay. Every afternoon I saw the 8-year-olds with their 5-gallon buckets, like those Home Depot buckets you see, filled with water. Try lifting that, and they're getting their water at our faucet there at the mission to carry back to their houses, some of them a mile away, so they would have water that evening. I celebrated Eucharist with Father Octave, a Haitian priest, under a wooden lean-to. During the week, it was the classroom. On Sunday, it was the church. I was the first white woman to ever serve at that altar. And I heard the excitement. We had 2 mission clinics, one in Pentecost, where the church was, and the other in Sequim, which is up the road a piece, up a rocky, horrible road. It took us about an hour and a half to get there every day, to Sequim, to Stafford Satellite Clinic. And as we pulled into the parking lot, we heard, Doctors Blanc! Doctors Blanc! The white doctors had come. It was an event in that community. I was the pharmacist in the clinic. Do not look at Diane. I have no training as a pharmacist, but biology and mathematics, and they all said, "That's a pharmacist." All I had to do was count out 30 ibuprofen, 30 acetaminophen, 30 of this and 30 of that. So with a Haitian interpreter, we were able to meet the needs of the people who were coming through that clinic. The last person on our last day at Hansebo was a very elderly, bent-over man in a straw hat. He had a great deal of muscle pain. It hurt him to walk. And he had walked for 2 days barefoot because he heard the doctors blanc were not Cebu. By the time he got there at 4 o'clock that last day, we were out of almost anything. And all I could give him was 30 aspirin. So when I got back, I talked to Ted, our medical director, and said, "We got to do it better than we did this time. You know, we need to be able to give people what they need here." I saw people dying of diseases that are easily treatable here in the United States. I held a baby whose mother had died and watched the nurses rifling our supplies, our personal supplies we had brought in, everything that was there in the clinic, trying to make enough formula to leave with grandmother so that that baby would live after we had gone. I anointed and prayed with the dying woman who was laid in front of the cement altar there in the church. I can see her still. So I asked Ted at the end of that first visit, "What is your biggest need?" And he said, "We need a medical clinic here in Pentecost, so that the maintenance drugs, the heart drugs, blood pressures endemic in the Haitian population, would be available year-round." I said, "How much would it cost to build a clinic?" And he said, $40,000. I said, "Okay, I'll make it happen." So, since I was traveling anyway, I preached all over the Diocese of Colorado about the Colorado Haiti Project, raising awareness, recruiting volunteers, and of course, raising the money, $40,000. There is now a fully staffed medical clinic in Pentecost that people can come to year-round to get their medications. Between my mission trips to Haiti, I had become busier and busier doing spiritual direction, primarily with those who were in what I call spiritual poverty after experiencing abuse or neglect as children. They would sit in my office and open their hearts, relive their pain and describe their self-hatred, and express their anger at the God who let that happen, and voice that deep despair. The survivors needed a place to understand the spiritual wounds and to give them hope. After consultation with friends and colleagues, I was urged by my priest and friend Sarah to talk to one of her parishioners, a film producer named Sherry Meerman. She said she thought we might have a lot in common. She also was a spiritual companion and worked with abuse survivors, and I said to myself, "Good Lord, I could never work with Sherry Meerman. She is way too strong-willed." That is God's sense of humor. Sherry and I did talk, and talked about the possibilities. And at that time she said, "I can't believe that no one has helped these survivors connect with the spiritual side of their healing. All the therapy in the world will not repair the soul of the survivor. Only God can do that." A friend, Susan, overheard us and said, "My daughter was abused by her father as a child. She will never read a book, but she might watch a video or talk to someone about it." So Sherry and I began to slowly explore the possibilities of how we might facilitate the spiritual healing for childhood abuse survivors. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So Mary's Hope was born, creating resources for the spiritual healing of adult survivors of child abuse, and that was in 2000. An author said to us, "When timid, despairing, abused souls discover through the stories of others that they're not alone, hope blossoms and healing finds a way through the tangle of twisted memories and dashed dreams. By the time of our retirement just last year, Sherry and I had presented 265 workshops and programs to over 8,500 people in 13 states and 2 Canadian provinces. I remember the time we went to a women's prison in Ohio. We took our faithful companion, Amy, with us. Amy traveled everywhere with us. She's part of our team, representing the little child before the child felt or received any abuse. We talked with the staff about these issues so they would be aware of this other level of wounding that existed in the women they were dealing with. And then we gave a presentation to 20 of the inmates. And the inmates were riveted by our words. With Amy with us, now she had to go through the x-ray machine at the prison. And she liked it. She wants you to know, she liked it a lot. That little thing was going buzz, buzz, buzz at her. That day, as we taught, I sat Amy down by my feet in front of us. And one of the inmates reached out and picked her up. Now, when this was a new inmate, we knew she was a new inmate because she was wearing the boot camp garb that all the new arrivals were put into. And I can still picture her bent over, hugging, and rocking Amy through the entire presentation, as if she could never, ever let go. At another workshop in Oklahoma, we got a letter from Rick, a Kansas City social worker, and he said, "When I came to your workshop, I was in so much spiritual pain that I had decided to die. I hadn't eaten for 10 days. When I saw the information about your workshop, I took one more chance. I came, I listened, I heard, I felt God touch my soul. I'm eating again. I have chosen to live." Those are some of my stories as an ordained deacon. You all are a congregation of individuals with huge deacons' hearts. I've seen that in the 6 years that we've been here. Each of you have your own stories. Each of you could give your own sermon. And that's one reason I feel so at home here at St. Luke's. We are all called to do God's work in this broken world. The decisions are whether to say yes and whether to show up. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Or as I saw on a Facebook posting, that love your neighbor stuff, I meant it. Signed, God.